All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Rob Pagetto, radio and TV personality in Toronto, Ontario. And it is about 9 degrees Celsius, cloudy, and no snow. If you're a skier, you don't want to be in Toronto right now, but just north of us, absolutely. So we're going to wait for a few others to join in. But in the meantime, today we'll be chatting about three areas you're exposed to fraud in AP without AI. We'll shine a light on the vulnerabilities present in accounts payable processes when AI is not part of the equation. And our expert panel will share with you key areas in the AP process where AI can reduce the risk of fraud and help you understand how fraudsters are targeting those with weak controls. We'll also explore how fraudsters are also using AI to attack and what your best defenses should be. So we have two wonderful people on our panel today, and we're going to be meeting them right now. Deborah R. Richardson is representing Eiffel. I believe, Deborah, you're in Detroit right now. And
I
congratulations on yet another certification. How big is this resume of yours?
I know I have so many of those acronyms after my name. I'm just like, okay, I need to cut some off. But I'll go through a quick introduction if that's okay now. I
Absolutely.
am again Deborah R. Richardson. I'm a certified fraud examiner. That's the latest. And I'm also a certified accounts payable professional, the CAP certification through IFOL. And I provide training and content to avoid fraud, fines, and bad vendor data to AP and vendor team professionals that still have a manual process. And we know there are a lot of you out there, so don't feel bad, but I've got some best practices, controls, and authentication techniques for you.
And Deborah, we've been working together now for about 6 months, and we've got a few more conferences coming up. Your wisdom and expert advice has been just enjoyable. Even though I'm not in this industry, I've learned a lot from you. We've also got Tom Olson from SAP Concur, and he's from parts unknown because he has traveled the world because of his field of expertise. Tom, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks a lot. How are
Now,
you?
Tom is not going to be joining us on camera. We'll let's just leave that to your reasoning and just tell us about yourself, Tom.
All right. Well, I'm Tom Olson. I'm Vice President of our Managed Business Services at SAP Concur. My specific area of focus is AP, invoice processing, as well as expense reports. And I've been around long enough to see how these processes evolved without AI. And then, of course, over the past few years, we've heavily invested in many AI-based solutions. And today we're well on our way in leading the charge globally with that. So uh, absolutely, looking forward to the conversation. Appreciate being here. There's so much technology. There are so many mysteries around AI and what it can really do. And I think it's exciting to be part of a conversation to help people understand where that can be applied.
So, Tom, it's safe to say you're a VIP in AI.
I think it's safe to say that. Yeah. Our just to give you a scope, our systems today probably do about 70 million AI checks on the transactions that are processing through our system. And that's in a month. So, when you think about it at that scale, AI is today making a significant contribution, but that's okay. Today we're also here to talk about what you can do when you don't have AI. And that's just as relevant, if not even more, in today's marketplace as people transition into the AI arena. So,
Interesting. Well, why don't we get to it? We're going to go through three questions. Each question will have multiple choice. And for all of you that have joined the webinar, we ask that you answer truthfully one of those choices. We're going to bring up some stats, and then we're going to talk about what makes those different choices. So the first question is, how do you verify vendor detail change requests? Is it by email? Is it by phone call? Is it by mail, bank account ownership validation tools, or none of the above? So if you can just take a moment to answer that. And Deborah, I'll come back to you. How's it in Detroit today?
So when you were saying that it was cloudy, that's exactly what we get. We don't get a whole lot of sun in Michigan anyway. But yeah, that's what we get today. Yesterday was very sunny though. So I was happy for that, and very mild weather. So no snow either.
So, what is your last certification all about? Give us a little insight on that.
You mean the certified fraud examiner
Yeah, you just
certification?
yeah, you just got another certification. So, what was that about?
Yeah, that was my fourth quarter last year. And it's all about finding both internal and external fraud within an organization, doing assessments, identifying where the gaps are.
Big industry, this fraud thing. So we can see that our webinar participants have said 75% of you are doing this by phone call. Deborah, kind of shocking, isn't it?
Actually, it's not surprising that it's by phone call because that is what a lot of companies have in place. I would just like to say about that phone call, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's not enough by itself. You need to wrap it or surround it with internal controls.
Yeah, I can see that, these other answers are just kind of spread out very thinly. So maybe they're not doubling up or tripling up on following up.
Yeah, I do see that there are some that are using that bank account ownership validation tool
Mhm.
as well. I'd be interested to see like what the success rate of that is, because sometimes it's not as high as you'd like it to be.
So what's your advice when it comes to vendor detailed change requests and verifying them?
Let's start back with where I think AI can help, definitely help. But if you don't have that in place during the invoice submission process, right? So there's times when vendors will include change banking on their invoice and expect changes to be made just because that change or new banking is on the invoice. And I think that's really bad practice. You need to follow your current existing vendor change process. And if you base that on the invoice, you're not going to send, right, your internal or your customized vendor banking form, which I do recommend, that has authenticating data on it. Yes, you can do the phone call, but you also need your own forms that need to be completed that include authenticating data, including the existing banking information that you can use to compare with what's already in your vendor master file. That will help to avoid fraud, again, along with that phone call, but you're surrounding it with additional internal control. So never change banking details, only based on an invoice.
Interesting. Now, Tom, how does AI play into this?
Well, AI is going to be able to, maybe not validate the banking information on your behalf. It may be able to find some adjunct information that you can use to verify the source, but I think exactly what Tracy has indicated here today. It's if somebody wants to, even if you're using AI tools, right? No matter what that initial method of communication might be, phone or email, it's one of those trust but verify. You really do need to ensure that you do the appropriate follow up. I wouldn't necessarily just rely on AI to do that. You need to be very sure that when you're changing that banking information that you're doing so properly. And, you know, just as Tracy outlined, there's authenticating information that you need to gather. I wouldn't necessarily rely on AI to gather or confirm that for you. That's something that even if you had AI doing some research, you really want to make that direct connection and ensure that those updates are safe.
So safe to say, use the tools that Deborah is describing along with AI.
Oh,
That's your
absolutely,
your best
absolutely.
protection.
Well, then I think it's more of a process question, right, versus a tool. It's how do you go about validating that information, and tools can help you, but it's just critical that you're not, just making those updates and end up finding that you're actually paying the wrong person. And
Yeah, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but with AI, right? So if you're getting the invoice that has fraudulent banking on it, it means it's been sent by a fraudster, and AI can detect if it comes from like an email that's maybe not already on file, if they try to spoof an email or something like that. So that may be an area where it can help, but I definitely agree you need to have additional processes in place.
yes, absolutely. No, that's true. It may flag, this could be a
Yeah.
sender that it's not familiar with. There are ways to kind of identify whether you're really getting the information from someone that you trust. But as I said, and really the best practice would be to follow up and really make sure that that change was intentional and that you don't have somebody making those requests uh, really when they shouldn't be. It's I wouldn't rely on AI only to make that validation, but it could certainly help flag
Yes.
a potential issue that you could then follow up on.
What has been, just out of curiosity, the largest um, fraudulent invoice you had to deal with in terms of money? Because I know we discussed this before, Deborah, and we heard it was like $30 million. There was one fraudulent
Wow.
invoice from one company.
Yeah, there's one out there. There's a couple out there. One was 35 million, and I think that's the one we were talking about. But there was one from, I think it was Facebook. It was like $123 million or something. And by the way, they were able to recover that money, but not everybody is that lucky.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. All right, let's get to our next question. We'll just punch that up on the computer. What payment types do you use? Please only check one. Checking, wire, ACH, virtual card, or all of the above. So, Deborah, how like $100 and something million on Facebook, and they got it back, but it must have been a lot of work to do so. And do they find these fraudsters and punish them? Or are they so cyber that it's just like, it's tough to track them down?
I follow. So there are some organizations that will post when, they catch the fraudsters and put them in jail. But it's like anything else. It's another one's gonna pop up right after, right? They're so toxic that you can, plant them in the ground and a whole nother one will pop up. So glad that they're finding these fraudsters, but they don't always do that. Um, I have seen though where they're starting to kind of go after the banks now too. So in addition to the fraudsters, so hopefully that will help in getting the banks to not process those requests.
So virtual card, nobody clicked on that. ACH at 33% and all of the above, which I guess kind of includes virtual card, is at 48%. Deborah, those numbers speak volumes.
So they're not promising because I will say I think that virtual card is definitely or should be an option because depending on the issuer, if there is a fraudulent transaction, you might be able to get that back, right? You may not be liable for that. So I think virtual card is an excellent option. It's less prone to fraud, but I get why ACH is higher, right? Everyone wants to not have a check, but keep in mind that coming along with that ACH, that is the highest fraud risk. And so you need to
Yes.
make sure that you have processes in place, you have tools in place that can help to prevent fraud.
Tom, what do you
Yeah.
think?
You know, I totally agree. And, virtual cards are, AI is actually able to do a lot of validation, and there's a lot of controls that you can set on those to ensure that uh, you know uh, payments are going to the right place for the right purpose. There's a lot of data that you can obtain through the use of a virtual card that AI can analyze and help you see if there's potential fraudulent activity going on. And a lot of the other payment types that you've listed here, there's not enough data collected around them for you to do the same level of analysis that you would on virtual card payments. And so I'm not surprised either by these results, but virtual card is definitely, looking forward a way to, very cleanly and properly manage your spend. And as Deborah said too, I mean, that's, we at SAP Concur, it's easier to manage your spend before you spend it. And using a virtual card and some of the AI tools that can look at where who's billing you, what kind of a merchant are they, all kinds of different things, you could potentially stop that payment before it happens.
Yeah.
So it's the data that surrounds a virtual card that allows you to utilize AI to potentially detect fraud. And that's why, it really is a much safer way to go.
So, Tom, is AI, it's enhancing the business as opposed to taking away jobs, correct? You still have to do your due diligence on like Deborah's side.
Oh, you do. Absolutely. It is not a fail-safe technology like anything else. I mean, think about it like your car, right? They have self-driving cars. I don't think they're telling you to, put a blindfold on and eat dinner with your hands off the wheel. You still need to sit there with your hands pretty darn close, and you're still in the driver's seat while it's helping you out. And that's kind of the same, if you will, with some of these processes. AI will empower you. AI will give you access to data and be able to analyze that data and make it, more relevant to you very quickly, right? It can do research and present to you things that you haven't thought of so efficiently and so quickly, that it's not replacing you, it's enabling you, it's empowering you, it's giving you access to data in more data than you've ever had access to, but also it's analyzed, it's contextual, it's looking for other related data that it can present to you to help you out. So it's by no means a replacement. Humans are, here to stay, but
Yeah.
it gives you that much more power.
And the way I like to think of it, Tom, and I'm sure you would agree, I think that it changes, right, our positions from what could be considered data entry. So it changes
Yeah,
that from data entry to auditors.
that's exactly right. No, you're right. Auditors are presented with artifacts that have to be
Mhm.
reviewed to make an adjudicated decision. And if AI can bring that data to you in a manner that's packaged up to make that decision better or in a more informed manner, that's a good thing.
Mhm.
And that's really the power of AI in some of these processes. It's not going to do it for you. You shouldn't rely on it 100%, but it can absolutely give you tools to do the job better.
Interesting. I love it. All right, let's get to our final question. As we punch that up. How often do you train your team on fraud threats? Are you doing this monthly, quarterly, yearly, or you don't recall the last time? And if you're hitting that one, not good. So please click on only one of those. While we're going through the numbers there, Tom, now you've traveled the world with your company, and I recall, like, I think Minnesota was your most exotic place, and I'm kidding.
Yes, London, Moab, Minnesota. No. I have. And, with regard to this question too, not only are we training our team on fraud, but our team trains us on fraud, right? The folks that are processing these transactions, the folks that are working with the different vendors and making these processes happen are oftentimes the best people to give you ideas on ways you can enhance your fraud detection systems. So, I mean, obviously within SAP Concur, we're doing this for, to improve our products, to be able to build roadmaps around technology. But honestly, these should be a training. It's two-way. Not only do you train your team on what we've learned and things to look out for, but it's just as important to listen to them, and they may come up with things and trends that you're hearing. You're hearing for the first time, and it may sound obscure, but it's oftentimes those people that are doing the work that surface some of these things long before anybody else. And these things have to surface before we can build technology to detect them. So as much as you really need to train them, it's important that you listen to them as well and use their experience to continually enhance your process. So there's that.
I appreciate the honesty of our participants, because there's 18% of you said you don't recall the last time that you've trained your team on fraud threats. Quarterly, yearly, what do you think is the best? Monthly, I imagine. Deborah?
Yeah, so I would say as often as needed. And one of the things I do want to point out is that for the accounts payable and the vendor team members or professionals, cybersecurity awareness training is fine. It's great. I think we all need it. And maybe that's what some of these percentages are reflecting. But I think the accounts payable and vendor team members need much more or more in-depth training
They do.
than that
Yes.
cybersecurity awareness training that may be, that annual training, because with all the email technology and filters out there, still 15% of fraudulent emails get through to our inboxes. And if you're using Outlook, that increases to 22%, right? And so you still have to have a way to deal with those. And we can't follow the regular advice. We can't not click on links, right? Because that's how we get some of our bills. We can't not download attachments, because that's how we get the information to set the vendor up, and that's how we get our invoices. And so we need much more than cybersecurity awareness training. And I would say you need to have a meeting as often as possible to make sure you're keeping up with the trends of fraud that are the fraud trends that are out there, and have a resource to get those fraud trends, so you're always up to date on what's going on.
Yeah. If I may add to that as well, that kind of a training, and maybe the reason it's not being done is people don't find it fun or entertaining. And I mean, Deborah and I are a couple of strange folks where I find this kind of work very, very fun. But one thing that's really worked for us to engage and get people involved in those conversations and trainings is to bring some creative ideas. One thing we love to do is you know uh, you tried to do what, or you tried to expense what. And these are sessions where we bring our employees in, and they bring the fun stories, right? Behind every one of those fun stories, somebody trying to buy a wedding dress on an invoice or something like that, just very obscure things. They may be a clue or a door that you can unlock to unveil a new scheme that people are using, or a new process that they're trying to embed to uh, you know, uh, fraudulent processes. So, make it fun, I guess, is the bottom line. When you do those trainings, have the participants bring their ideas, their fun stories, their serious stories, but make it very engaging. And I think that you'll find that people look forward to it. And it's not a matter of, do you do the training, but people are going to look forward to it and, actively participate. So make it fun, and explore what you're finding, and share it, and don't look at it just as a one-way training experience.
How often are you guys finding companies that internally their team is fraudulent, if that even happens?
It does.
Yeah, it does. And what's really bad about that is that it often goes on for so long before it's caught. Because and not just smaller companies, right, where you're relying on that one golden employee, which they might be great, but they also might be fraudulent. But it happens to the biggest of them. Tom, I don't know if
Yes.
You probably heard there's a one from just recently from Facebook where she was adding in her relatives, right, as
Yep.
vendors and then sending invoices through. And
Yep.
then they would give her, right, they would keep a cut of the money once the invoice was paid. But there was also the one with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this guy
Hmm.
got away with for years for I think it was like 20 million or 28 million.
That's
He
right.
bought a condo. I don't even know how that was missed.
You're right. It's often the toughest to find because not only do they understand the processes and how to get around them, but some
Yes,
of them have the system permissions to approve
yes,
these expenses, that they shouldn't be. So separation of duties is really important in your processes to ensure that your employees aren't using the tools to do devious things.
right.
But the other thing too is, an example that I had, and it kind of talks about what we started the call with. Um, we had a recruiter. This isn't at SAP, but a story that I was involved. There was a recruiter that, had used headhunters for many, many months to find employees, and so the invoices that were coming through were very familiar, for those headhunter fees. And then, lo and behold, the invoices were coming through, but the bank information changed. Everything else looked exactly the same, but the bank information was the actual recruiter's bank. So this person was actually just creating fictitious invoices that looked perfect, but the payment information at the bottom was going into her own account. And it was a very long time before the company found that. So,
Wow.
those are things, yes, it does happen internally. And there's some of the most creative, devious things and processes, that we've seen. And we try to those are the kinds of things we try to build AI to look for,
Mhm.
and without going into a lot of details, I mean, there is a lot of power in AI to be able to look at those transactions to maybe flag them, not stop them, but flag them. And, but yes, definitely be very aware of your internal employees.
Yeah, and I will tell you too, one use of AI that I really like is, and you mentioned before, expense reports. So if you have an
Yes.
expense report and, maybe on the expense report is the hotel bill, right? Because
Yes.
that's for the travel. But if that employee also wanted, right, to be fraudulent, they could submit the invoice to be paid for that hotel. And then, in addition to submitting it to be reimbursed on the expense report, and AI can find that in the
Absolutely.
interim. Right. And so what we used to do is when we didn't have AI, is that we just wouldn't set up, right, restaurants and hotels in our vendor master system so that, or in our vendor master file. So if an employee did try to do that and they tried to send the invoice through to be paid while still getting reimbursed on the expense
Yep.
report, the invoice couldn't be paid because there was no vendor to post it against. And so that's one kind of manual thing that you can do if you don't have that AI in place. But I was really excited when that came out because that is
Hmm.
definitely a way to avoid fraud using AI.
Absolutely. No, you're right. AI could look at the transaction dates, the
Mhm.
amounts, even the times, and compare those to see if there's any potential duplicates. And what we're talking about here are employees that may, double dip, basically use that receipt or that invoice to be reimbursed in more than one way. And
Yes.
you're right. We too would recommend you not necessarily pay hotel or meals. I mean, caterers are different, but like restaurant meals and hotels, if
Yeah.
you pay those with invoices, the tools, the itemization, the detection of alcohol or other things that may be against policy, those are tools that are very sophisticated on the expense side.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter, as you said, to not use an invoice process for those things, but to make the person who spent the money personally accountable for attesting to why they did.
Safe to say, if you got a team member pulling into the driveway with a new car every year, you might want to put the detective hat on. We got a few more. I'm just curious about this because again, I'm learning about this industry every time we do one of these webinars. So, how do you go about reading an invoice if it's in a foreign language? Passo a ti, Deborah. In Italian, that means over to you.
So, and actually, we used to have this a lot when I was a practitioner because we were a global company, and I still have flashbacks to this day about invoices coming in. And typically, again, we don't change banking or even add banking based on an invoice, but there was one country, I think it was Japan, where the bank account holder name needed to be in. And again, this has been 8 years, and I still remember uppercase katakana.
Mhm.
And so we would go to the invoice to try to get that information. And then, of course, when it failed, we ended up having to have someone local to that area provide that information from that local office. But of course, we couldn't tell if they did it right either because we couldn't read it. And so that was always kind of a, cat and mouse, see if it goes through this time type of thing. But it was very hard for us to read those invoices that came in a different language. We would have to have someone local in the local office interpret that for us.
Yeah. I have to jump into on that one. It's very difficult. Now, AI is really accelerating in the space of translations. You see now you can just have conversations on your phone, and the person on the other end hears your voice in a different language. So it's very sophisticated, and this is an area that a lot of companies suffer with. The invoices come in from other locations in different languages. Um, AI is excellent at reading those documents. Even if it's not a word for word, it's able to point out enough information for you to understand the contents. It's better than guessing. So, if you don't have a translator, a person handy, I would absolutely, this is one area everyone can benefit from AI is for translations, and it really is critical.
And I
Uh,
think this is a big one, Tom, for like AI use at the user level.
exactly.
Because if you think about it, we have instructions to our vendors, we have
Yep.
forms that our vendors have to fill out, and they're in different countries. It may be better to put it into their language and then send that information to them. And AI can definitely help with that.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, Deborah, final thoughts on today's topic.
So I know, and because I go to in-person conferences, I talk with practitioners all the time, and I know that not everyone has access, right, to AI tools at the user level. Some of your companies are still trying to figure out what that policy is going to be. But when you do get it, make sure that you find out what tools can help you to avoid fraud and what features and functions they have that can help you to avoid fraud. But in the meantime, right, leverage the third-party tools that you may already have or maybe implementing to avoid fraud. Just make sure you understand what features they have, what they can do that you might not be utilizing to help you to avoid fraud.
And same to you, Tom. Final comments on this topic?
Yeah, we're in this time, we're really only able to kind of scratch the surface of the topic. But I think uh, in parting, I would say don't be afraid of AI. Certainly in this context, it is a tool for you. It is giving you the power to do your job better. And there are a lot of things you can still do without it, very procedural or process driven best practices. But start small. I think starting with a translation tool. Become familiar with how it can assist you in your job. But it's not something to fear. And then on the other side, I would also say don't rely on it entirely. It can take you almost all the way there, but you shouldn't let it make all the decisions for you. Let it inform you of the best decision to make, but make sure that final decision, you don't want to be too reliant on it. It can take you all, very, very close to the end, but you need to make sure that, you still have uh, someone looking at what AI believes that it has found. So, it's there to empower you, and it will evolve quickly. Some things will work for you, some things won't. But keep an open mind, and let's just continue to create ideas and ways that we can enhance your processes. And I think in the future it will we'll be able to get ahead of some of these fraudsters better than we are today.
Tom Olson from SAP Concur, Deborah Richardson from Eiffel, very insightful, lots of information there. Thank you for joining us today, because fraud is everywhere. As I just ordered a book online titled How to Scam. It's been 6 months now, and I still haven't received it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's on YouTube too.
You were scammed, Rob.
I was scammed. So thank you very much. I always try to end off with a joke. This obviously has been recorded, so you'll be getting a copy of this. And to our webinar participants, I hope this helped, and keep an eye out for more informative webinars just like this coming from Eiffel. I'm Rob Pagetto. Thank you again, Deborah. Thank you, Tom, and be safe out there, and keep the dream alive of getting these fraudsters.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Take
Bye.
care.